But now I want your calls on this. Should benefit assessments be face-to-face? 0207 862 2222 is the number. Get your calls in for this one now. More than 90% of disability benefit claims are being assessed remotely, sort of online, as more civil servants work from home. Now, figures show face-to-face disability assessments are at their lowest since the pandemic. The vast majority take place via phone or video call. And the concern is that so-called fraudsters could abuse the welfare system thanks to a lack of thorough checks. So, should all benefit assessments be made face-to-face? Geoff, what's your thoughts on this? Does it matter?
It does matter. Look, I mean, I can see that my view on this is shaped by my experience growing up. I grew up in a council estate, and there were people there that could have worked that didn't. Now, I'm not angry with them for making that choice, but the net consequence of that was I felt that there was potential and they lived limited lives. So, look, obviously the vast majority of claims are legitimate, but of course there'll always be fraudulent claims within that. And the one thing that you need is to be in the room with people, to use your instincts as a human being as to the veracity. It's not always about whether or not people are not telling the truth. It's about, especially in terms of reporting mental health and anxiety, it's about the severity of those symptoms and whether or not actually that person becoming more isolated would be more damaging than if they had a strategy to remain in the workplace and try and cope.
I suppose, you know, the government are trying to get tighter on who is getting disability benefits. Yeah. It would probably be a respectful thing to have somebody in and let them know face-to-face why maybe they're not getting the benefits that they think they're entitled to.
Yeah, I mean, same with doctors, with GPs, but there's a massive shortage of GPs. There's a shortage of time that doctors have, even when it is face-to-face. How much worse is it for Department of Work and Pensions people? They've got a 20% vacancy rate in these DWP places up and down the country. They're struggling to find assessors, people to work on PIPs and all these other types of benefits. There are problems with people not claiming their benefits because they're too expensive. That's the bigger problem, I think, than the fraud. And if you look at the worst case of fraud, there's a massive story in the news. Last year, a Bulgarian gang stole £50 million between 2016 and 2021. It wasn't a case of them being seen remotely and online. They did it face-to-face, right under the noses, and they managed to defraud the system.
But Herman, 9 in 10 though, a lot of people will be surprised that this is happening full stop. 9 in 10 of these assessments are being done. Now, I'm not saying that sometimes that'll be because the person is saying they can't leave the house and stuff, but it can't carry on like that.
I think we've got a graphic here. This was in the Telegraph, but it's from, the stats are from the Department for Work and Pensions. Now, the dark blue line that you can see at the top is now the proportion of PIP assessments being carried out remotely, so you can see that went from below 50% and it's way up to nearly sort of
it's gone recently.
Past 90% now.
That'll be counterintuitive to a lot of people that it's recently gone up again.
And then on the other side of things, face-to-face appointments have gone down from over 50% to under, what are we now, 20%.
But remember, you know, these online assessments, whether they're being done online or face-to-face, aren't going to be decided there and then. There's going to be checks. They're going to check with your bank records, check with previous employers, check with your medical staff, medical reports, and that's going to be done electronically. So if the initial conversation is done online, you can get through more of them per day because the assessors are under massive pressure. And one of the biggest problems in the system, Geoff, is the amount of time it takes people to get their assessment and then get their benefit or refusal, get a decision. And that adds more stress and builds up the waiting list.
But I just think, I can't believe I'm about to sort of quote Rishi Sunak here, but
well, there you go.
If you look at the figures since the pandemic, I'll be the only person in Britain quoting Rishi Sunak in a positive way, but you look at mental health, depression and anxiety, it's double the level that it was since the pandemic. And so the question people have to ask themselves is, are people twice as depressed and anxious? Some people might think that they are. I personally think that there will be a number in that where whatever those symptoms are can be managed. And one way you do that is by being in the room with the person.
Tony Blair is actually in the papers today talking about just that, whether we are medicating too many people's natural ups and downs. OK, stay with us because I want to hear from you. Do you think that benefit assessments should be done face-to-face as opposed to on the phone or video call? 0207 862 2222 is the number. We're just going to go back to asking whether all benefit assessments should be made face-to-face. You can give us a ring on this one. We want your stories. 0207 862 2222 is the number. And we're going to go to the phone lines and speak to Sharon from Lincolnshire first. Face-to-face assessments, do you think that's only fair?
Yes, I do, because there seems to be a lot of people that are not being background checked. When I was poorly, I was in hospital for over a year, and I was in rehabilitation for a while. And when I came out of rehabilitation and into the community, I was phoned by the people that wanted to assess me for benefits, but also they background checked me so that I was telling the truth, that they called my hospital, they called the doctors, they called the people that were looking after me to be rehabilitated into society again. And I have never had a face-to-face, but there are some people that do try and pull the wool over people's eyes and are not back-checked.
There are, Sharon, but that's going to be the case whatever way you make these assessments. I do wonder, for example, if somebody comes in and says, I'm clinically depressed, I've got a doctor's note, the GP says that I'm clinically depressed, I'm on antidepressants. They may not be, but how is an assessor going to decide that in person any differently than she would if it was on a phone call or on a FaceTime?
They can check that with their doctors.
Yeah, but the person could be lying to their doctor. That's what I'm saying, Sharon. They could be getting prescribed antidepressants and not bother taking them. There's all sorts of ways we can fraud the system. I'm wondering how face-to-face is going to make the difference.
But stop. If your fella, you thought he was telling a little fib from a stag do, would you think you had more chance of knowing whether or not that was real or not over a Zoom or with him standing in the room with you?
I feel like I would smell that coming a mile
maybe
away. They wouldn't even have to make the lie up.
But you would use verbal and physical cues and your own sort of spider senses.
Is that what you're getting at, Sharon? That you just get more from an individual if you're seeing them face to face? Sharon?
But we noticed when Sharon was speaking there, right, she said that they called my doctor, they called this person, that person. They would do that anyway. That's where the real robust checks are made. Because, as you said, you can say anything to somebody. You can say, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling suicidal, and people will have to take that at face value and escalate it and be more inclined to give you the PIP or the benefit.
Sharon, thank you very much for your call. Carol from London, what's your view? Does it have to be face-to-face? It's a lot of time. Maybe it's a waste of money?
No, I think that it should be face-to-face.
And why is that?
Well, first of all, the way the system is at the moment, it's very incompetent. I mean, I know they're very, it's very difficult. You've got people that fraud the system. I know all of that. I understand that. But you know what? Years ago, there used to be a DHS in every town, and you would make your application there. You would go there. You would be assessed. You may have to be there all day. But you know what? You've got seen to. Nowadays, they take so long, and a lot of the assessments are very incompetent. Sorry, I personally, I'm retired now, but I do remember I had a time on benefits and I was actually suspended for 26 weeks and I had told the truth all along.
Carol,
and I'm not the only one.
Okay, but that shows that they can make mistakes, doesn't it? That shows that they can make mistakes.
Yeah, but they make a lot of errors. They make a lot of errors.
But I
you know what people's life they're dealing with.
But I put to you then, Carol, your criticism of them is their incompetence, not whether the assessment is done face-to-face or not.
No, I do believe that an assessment should be done face-to-face because they assume a lot of things that are untrue.
OK, Carol, thank you very much for your call. Erin from Manchester, what's your thoughts on this?
Hi, so I recently just claimed disability benefits and disability benefits. So I'm on PIP and disability at the moment. I had a brain injury in 2022. Didn't claim to start with. I tried to work and self-employed, just a bit of a mess. Anyway, I didn't have an assessment. Based on the medical records, I think I had social workers involved with me and stuff. I didn't get help to start with. So I didn't have an assessment, but I've got it. And now it's so, because now I'm coming back and hopefully going back to work, that PIP money is going to be essential for me. I didn't have an assessment, but I would have been happy to have an assessment because
Hold on,
I
you say
have got a
Erin,
disability.
Erin, just so I've got this clear, because it may be that you didn't have an assessment and they had to go round another way of doing things for you because you had a brain injury, so an assessment may have been pretty difficult to make at certain points. But Erin, when you say you didn't have an assessment, you weren't seen by anyone at all? It was all done behind closed doors? It was all done by maybe your doctors and the government together?
Yeah, I'm a care coordinator, I think.
And your care coordinator, so it sounds like they sort of work together, and I wonder whether that is because of the injury that you suffered there, Erin. I'm not sure about that, but it is unusual for you not to be assessed at all. Thank you very much for your call. Shelley from Newcastle, what's your view? Does assessments have to be made face-to-face, or actually could we save time doing them online?
Not really. My point is I think we need more investigators to check people when they're at home. Because we know a few people. There's this one lass. She had a thing like this, and she went in a dressing gown, trying to say she can't get out of bed. She feels ill and everything, and she gets top rate PIP, and she's fine all the other times. But when she goes to the doctors and that, she pulls the wool over her eyes. It's the same. We know somebody who's got. They say they've got depression. They can't go out. They're getting full PIP, and there's nothing wrong with them as well. I think people need to be investigated outside when they're in the homes because they're lying to these people.
I know there's going to be so many people screaming yes at the TV right now, Shelley. I think a lot of people feel that way. To go
in that
a
case,
step
why don't they
further,
film them then and then turn them in?
Well, this is what Shelley's talking about. Oh, you mean individuals?
Yeah, well, Shelley feels so strongly.
Shelley,
if you feel so strongly, and you know this is happening for a fact, why don't you gather the evidence, do it in part of your civic duty, and then shop them? I mean, they might not be happy with you, but you're doing your civic duty.
But it's not down to me. It's down to these people to catch them. You know, they should be finding these people out.
Aren't we?
No one likes a grass, though. I mean, it is the responsibility of the state. But yeah, I think Shelley might be onto something.
But they're spending your money. You're a taxpayer.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
so maybe it is all of our responsibility.
People always characterise that as a very right-wing thing to say, to think about spending taxpayers' money. It's not left or right. Yeah. We should all have an eye on that kind of expenditure. And if there's people,
Shelley does, and Shelley's upset.
Shelley should head up the investigative unit. Okay, I think Shelley would do a good job.
Yeah. Shelley, thank you very much for that. Taking it a step further, Naomi from London, what's your view on this? Face-to-face assessments, or do you think phone assessment or video time assessment is completely acceptable?
Well, I would think that majority of successful claimants have already had a face-to-face assessment. Your previous caller who didn't, he had already care services and that in place, social services applied on his behalf. But for, I mean, there are illnesses and illnesses, you know, and things like PIP is decided on how that illness affects you rather than the illness itself. And but for people with lifelong conditions, for example, I don't know, dementia, epilepsy, Down syndrome, how many assessments do they need to have in their lifetime, because their condition is not going to improve, you know.
Naomi, I see what you're saying here, but I think we're talking about first-time assessments as well. So we're talking about people coming onto the system. They're not being given a face-to-face appointment. They're just being called and video phoned. And is that enough?
Well, not for first-time claimants, no. And, you know, as I said, there's various conditions. Well, you know, you have some people might claim because they've got a broken shoulder or a back pain, which could improve, you know, whereas there are other conditions, you know, that maybe people have had for 20, 30, 40, 50 years or even all their life, and then they're not going to improve. But, you know, so it depends on the condition, I think.
Back pain's a very difficult one, because that is very difficult to prove, and lots of people have back pain, claim for back pain. But Naomi, thank you very much for your call. Thanks for all your calls on this.